So remember, the theme is strategies for succeeding in a four-year institution. And this morning we have Marisa again. And then today we also have Moises Padilla. He's the Assistant Director, Office of Academic Success and Intercultural Services and the Unite Advisor. So he's the advisor to the group, and he's from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln here. And the panel today will be on Native student groups and your success. So I'll let you guys kind of introduce. Well, Marissa's introducing herself, but Moises, if you want to introduce yourself, and then maybe tell a little bit about Oasis, and then I don't know if you've talked about the student services at USD. Maybe after Moises is done, you can tell a little bit about that. All right, and then I'll let you guys take it away.
All right. Well, if I need to speak louder, let me know. But my name is Moises Padilla. I go by Moy. A lot of people can't say my name, and so y'all are more than welcome to just call me Moy. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, and so I'm a transplant to Nebraska. My family moved to Lexington, Nebraska, which is a really small town in the middle of the state. And I graduated from Lexington High School, come to the university, and now I work at the university. I took a 3-year break to go to grad school out in Colorado, and then came back. And one of my main jobs at UNL right now is working in our Multicultural Center, and so my job is to promote academic excellence, social engagement, and diversity awareness on our UNL campus. And one of my, it's not really part of my job, but I kind of consider it like my duty is to also serve as Unite Advisor. And when I was a student, even though I'm not Native American, I'm very connected with my indigenous roots. But even though I don't check the Native American box, I was very involved with planning powwows, and so when the students asked me if I would be willing to serve as their advisor, I was like, of course, I'd be happy to. I've been at the university since 2013, and the other thing that I also do on my free time, I'm also a PhD student, and my research is on how to better support underrepresented students on campus, predominantly white institutions. And so I do homework in the mornings, so that's. Did I get everything?
I think so.
You all know my name is Marisa Cummings, and I guess I haven't talked about my role at the University of South Dakota. So I'm the director of an office called Native Student Services, and we are an offshoot of the Student Services larger, department on campus. And my office is housed in what we call the Native American Cultural Center. And so the University of South Dakota has a very different setup than what I was used to at the University of Iowa. At the University of Iowa, which is a different setup than here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So at the University of Iowa, we had a multicultural department called the Center for Diversity and Enrichment. And they did a lot of the recruitment, retention programming, the student scholarships, things like that. And then we had cultural centers. And we had all kinds of cultural centers, LGBTQI, Asian Pacific Islander. We actually, because of the indigenous roots that we share with some of our Southern brothers and sisters, we called it the Latino Native American Cultural Center. We also had Afro House. So we had all these different houses where students could go and express their identities, right? They housed a lot of our student organizations. We could cook there. It was like a family house. One of my, I call her sister now, but we went through our undergraduate work together in Thin Oak. They got married there, and the reception was there. When people had babies, we would have their welcoming ceremonies there. So it was just a really active place to be for our Native student body. At USD, there's only one cultural center, and that is the Native American Cultural Center, because Native students are the highest underrepresented population in the state. And so there's also an office called the Center for Diversity and Community on campus, and they house a lot of other diversity organizations. So we have a kitchen on campus, students do the taco sales. We have someone who was at USD, so they probably know a lot of the activities that went on there. So for Native American Heritage Month, a lot of the programming is coming out of my office. We're bringing Anita Lucchesi to come talk about missing and murdered and her PhD work with mapping and actually creating a database of the missing and murdered women across the United States and Canada. So a lot of that type of programming comes out of the office. We're also doing a harvest dinner. So we're doing basically all traditional foods and having a program that talks about traditional foods too. So those are the types of things that we do in our office in addition to supporting students with retention efforts. And that means, so right now is midterms, which is always not a real fun time for students. And I'm a student too, so I'm also going through midterms. But one thing we did is like for our freshmen, so studies show us that first year students are less likely to connect with resources on campus because they're connecting to their environment in the residence halls, right? So they're meeting people on their floor, they're figuring out how to navigate the university or the institution. And so they're less likely to reach out to resources on campus. And so we're sending out a little like gift box or I don't know what to call it, care package, perfect. And on that we put a little note, and so it's from Native Student Services and it talks about all of our programming. And then our students are going to deliver that. So they're going to the different dorms and dropping them off, talking to students, engaging them, and letting them know what we do with the NAC. Because a lot of times if somebody like me shows up at the dorm, they're like, whoa, what are you doing here? They want to see other students. They want to talk to other students. They want to relate to other students. So that's one of the things that we're doing right now. And then, of course, when students come in, if there's an issue that comes up, people have to go home for funerals, things like that, they come to our office, and I kind of communicate with different people on campus to make sure they get the resources that they need to be successful. One student right now is doing a rodeo down in New Mexico. So she's one of the finalists for a rodeo, and we had to make sure that she was getting time off. She got all of her homework in advance, things like that. We also do graduation receptions, so Native American graduation receptions that are cultural specific, and we also allow smudging. So at the NAC, we don't have the fire alarms that you have at most places on campus, and we have a waiver that students can sign. So when you go into the residence halls, if you need to smudge, you can do that. And it won't, it's a fire code, they put like a sticker up on your doors. So that's one thing that I'm really proud that we do on campus. So our students, when they're having a rough day, they can come to the NAC and just center themselves and be who we are. And that's a really important service I think that we offer. In addition to that, we do orientations that are specific to Native students on campus when they come in. I don't know what other stuff I guess we can talk about, but a lot of this is also finding out best practices in terms of higher education. What are other institutions doing that's successful? And then talking to students. What makes your experience special? Because essentially, the universities exist for you. So it's all about what works for you and what will work for you as a student to get you where you want to be.
Come back from Colorado?
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife, she made me. So funny story. So being from the Southwest, I kind of want to go back to the Southwest at some point. And so moving to Colorado for grad school, I was like, oh, I'm getting closer, But after I graduated, my wife was also doing a master's. And so when she graduated, it was really hard for her to find jobs in her field in Colorado. And so she found a job in Omaha. And so it was kind of her turn. And so that's why we came back. But I love UNL. Like this was a place where I faced many challenges as a student, but it was also a place where there was a lot of growth as a person. And I think one of the coolest things about being a college student is, yes, college is hard. It's meant to test you and challenge you, whether it's in your classes, adjusting, to the different town or environment, and you grow from that. You learn strategies on how to cope with that stress. You meet people who will become, very supportive people in your. I met my wife in college. And so she's very supportive. But even other friends who are now. I went to school with people who are now surgeons, attorneys. social workers, teachers, and so you have this network of people that you can rely on, and it's a cool way for you to. I think many times in our communities we hear all the negative stuff, and so in college, like it's where you start seeing like, man, we like doing some good stuff, you know, like I'm really proud of my heritage. I'm really proud of who I am and what I'm trying to become, and so it's very empowering to be among other people who get you in a way. If that makes sense. So, but long story, long answer to your question. My wife brought me back, but I'm okay with that.
And I think just to feed off of something that you were talking about, the relationships and the networking that we form while we're in school is so important. There's people that I know, professors, people that were students. So one of, in our community at Iowa, we had a couple, and they were actually Navajo, and they had 5 kids when they were in school. And Arenzo, their name was Arenzo and Cheryl Snyder, and Arenzo was actually in medical school. So he completed his medical school and was in his urology residency. And Cheryl was in school, and they were still having kids while they were in school. They ran the University of Iowa powwow, and it was the largest university student-run powwow in the United States. They held us together as they were like our parents when we were in school. So I had, you all know that I had a 2-year-old daughter when I went to school, and so they helped with daycare. We would watch each other's kids. I mean, we just became a community on our own. And I have never known that type of support within, like what you were saying, like some of the negative things that happen in our community. We don't always feel supported, but what we did there is created a community that supported one another. And I think that happens at many institutions. It's not unique to the University of Iowa. But this summer, I'm at Prairie Island Powwow, and I'm in Grand Entry, and I'm standing there. And then here dances by me, Renzo's like, hey! And I was like, what? So he was there with his family, and I saw his kids grow up. I saw his daughter eventually come to Iowa. I think she transferred off went to another institution. But just being able to see people you care about, see their families grow, see them do amazing things in Indian country, because Indian country is so much bigger than what we know, right? It's so much bigger than Nebraska. And seeing these Native youth grow up and do these amazing things, to me, is so empowering and beautiful. And that's what we want for all of our kids, right? To have that opportunity to grow and do those amazing things. I've been able to sit at the table with people from NART, you know, and the Native American Rights Fund, which was always like my idol as a kid. I was like, oh, NART. I was able to sit at the table with John Echo Hawk and have a conversation. And those are really beautiful opportunities that come from having that baseline education. And knowing people that know people that know people, and creating those relationships. And that's nothing unique to us as Indigenous people. We were always networking, always around other tribes, always connecting with people, because connection is who we are, like forming those connections.
One of my favorite parts of my job is so students know they can come to me if maybe they didn't do so well on their first exams. And I sometimes hear like, you need to go talk to Moe. Like, you know, like giving each other advice and support. And I think that I have this like personal saying of, if not us, then who type of thing. And so if we don't take care of each other, who's going to take care of us? So let's take care of each other, and so yeah, that sense of community, that sense of I got your back, you got my back type of thing is important. Especially if you're coming to whatever university, right? I think it's really, really important to find your people or find that person. And once you find them, like, don't let go. Check in with them, being like, hey, Dr. Cornelius, I'm interested in engineering. Go to, just show up, like be visible, be present, because then, people will recognize you, will know, will look out for you in a way that won't happen if you're in your room all the time.
Right, so I think what happens a lot of times is Native faculty and staff take on responsibilities that they feel are cultural responsibilities with students. And so we have student counseling on campus, and we do have someone in the student counseling center that does know about native culture. She actually lives in Rosebud. She's not native, but she has a really good foundation and understanding in native mental health. But a lot of times, I've gone through some really hard times with students. I've had students that have been in domestic violence situations, students who couldn't afford to be in school when they got there. So working with our administration and having those relationships with people where I can find financial aid for them, have money to go to a funeral, and being able to find funding to support them, to give them enough gas money to get home for a funeral. Those types of things we don't talk about often, I think, and so what I'm trying to do, one of my projects right now, is trying to grasp that information on what we're doing that's not being recorded. And that's not, so there's a lot of things we record in data to see like how students succeed and things like that. So I'm trying to grasp this data that's non-tangible, right? That's relationships with students, that's talking about those types of things. So what we've done is we've actually, I'm in the advising database now. So we have this system we use, or this portal, where I can go in and say, this student just went through A, B, and C, and it stays confidential. And so the student, her instructors can see it, or his instructors can see it, their advisors can see it, so everyone's on the same page with the student. So it's more of a wraparound approach to making sure that student's successful. That way that the instructor's not like, what's going on? Why haven't they been in class in 3 days? Like, we all are on the same page with what's going on with the students. There can also be, one of our students had legal troubles. They were at another institution and something happened there, and all of a sudden they got extradited to another state, which ended up, everything was resolved and they came back, but they were gone for a week and a half from class. So we had to figure out how to get them back into class and make sure that they didn't have to drop out or withdraw. So those are the real things that we deal with, right? And I think we deal with them effectively and well, but it takes a team. It's not just me, it's not just someone in advising or an administrator. We all work together and communicate to make that happen. But these are really real scenarios. So you guys are thinking like, yeah, that stuff really happens, right? But for the most part, our students do a really good job of finding those connections on campus in other departments too. So they may have an advisor in business that they really like and they connect well with, and then that advisor offers opportunities, they offer scholarships. So those relationships and connections are really important too. And the majority of students are not going through like really traumatic events, right? But they do come up and they do need to be addressed because that's how we retain students. And that's how they persist to graduation, which is what we want as far as graduation.
Yeah, at UNL we have, so the way I look at it is you're like an athlete or musician or performer, and I'm your coach. And so I'm here to coach you on during your transition on how to navigate campus. It's really important to connect with your advisor. It's really important to connect with your faculty member. But if you're like, I don't even know how to talk to this professor, or my advisor is very short and like I really have a hard time like explaining kind of everything that's going on, then I can coach you on, okay, here's how you bring this up. We have, if a student is having challenges, for example, say maybe you're taking chem and calculus at the same time, and you're like, man, this is too much. We can work with you on how, basically put you on like tell you about different resources on campus. We have free tutoring, all sorts of academic support. That way you have all the tools that you need. So based on, you should have all the support you need to do well, but we know that there's more than just studying hours, right? So maybe you're just not feeling well. We have a counseling and psychological office on campus, and students can go there and talk to a person for free. But some students don't want to go to the health center because it's like, I'm not trying to, they're just hesitant. Well, we have staff from their office that come to the Multicultural Center, and we just have drop-in hours. And so it's very informal. We do have a room reserved in the third floor if in case you're like, no, I need to talk to somebody one-on-one. You don't have to fill out paperwork, because if you go to the health center, you have to fill out paperwork and do all that stuff. Over here, it's just like you're saying like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I have a couple questions that I'm struggling with, type of thing. So, and mental health, I don't think we talk about it enough. I think we think it's something that doesn't happen, but it's very common, right? Like there's a lot of stressors out there, whether it's academic, social, personal, and so being able to have those conversations with people, especially one thing that I'm very interested in is our men. Our guys they hate talking about their feelings, right? And I don't know why, but I'm usually the one like, hey, I need to talk to you, and they're like, oh, here we go again. So sometimes I feel like that older big brother who's kind of annoying them, but I think you need to figure out who you can talk to, because yes, it's not academics is very important, but it's also your well-being, and if you're not well, more than likely you might struggle a little bit with academics.
So there's two things that you just brought to mind. So one, I think that the process of healing, right, and identity development happens a lot. So some of you maybe, have gone on the track where you're 18 and you go to tribal college for 2 years and then transfer in. But most people aren't on that track. But there's this whole process of healing that we do as individuals. And that's happening while you're in college. And to me, that's what I found most important when I was in school is I was like, in high school, it's all about retaining knowledge, right? So it's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you have to remember that and re-recite it. But in college, they have you read something and say, what's your opinion? And I remember I was like, what? You want to know my opinion? So your thoughts, your ideas, like we talked about earlier, problem solving, critical thinking, that's where that comes in, and you're being taught how to do that, which to me, having my thoughts and opinions valued like that, I wasn't used to that. So I think that's a really important part to play in the identity development, and then personal healing as we go through, I had to go through things where I lost people while I was in school. I had to learn how to deal with grief. I had to learn how to deal with all these things on a personal level. And that was really difficult, but like we were talking about, there's a lot of self-work that happens throughout that process, and being away from family also causes you to grow in different ways. The other thing I wanted to talk about is resources on campus. There's something called supplemental instruction. I'm sure you have that here. It's at most institutions. When you're taking those tougher classes, there's free group tutoring you can go to. So it's not like individual tutoring where you feel like awkward with this tutor and you don't really know them. There's a group of people like in this room, and they're doing general tutoring. It's almost like a class, and then you can ask questions if you need to. Supplemental instruction is really, really valuable, and it's on students who go. It's a difference between an A and a B, or it's a difference between a C and an A. It's really important to take advantage of SI. There's also individual tutoring that's offered on most campuses for multicultural students for free. We also have mentoring programs that are really important to get involved in, because you get to have a relationship with maybe an upperclassman, develop that relationship, and they can kind of guide you through the process too, because sometimes you don't want to come talk to us because we are like old, and you want to talk to someone that's your age, and so that's totally normal and okay. I'm trying to think of what other resources in terms of academics that there are on campus. So usually a lot of those SI classes are in the math, the science, the business courses, chem courses, things like that are pretty tough for everyone. And so they're pretty large SI groups.
Another thing that really helps for our students, so if you're involved in Oasis in our office, we it's not mandatory, but the students don't know that, right? So we just tell them, oh, you have to complete your mid-semester grade, right? And so it's a good way for them to know where they're at in the middle of the semester. So in case you have to change, in college you can change a class from graded to pass no pass. It won't affect your GPA. So if you have a scholarship, or if you have to like pick up the slack, it's early on in the semester. And so we do that. We do study hours, group study hours, very similar to what you're talking about. So it's finding those people, right? Finding the individuals who will kind of guide you and coach you on how to do all that stuff.
So one I'll tell you guys actually a funny story. So I went to school in the city, graduated from North High School, and when I got to Iowa, I stayed in my dorm room. And somebody, I was close, so I did go to our, it was like our trio program office. So I did connect there with my advisor, whose name was Nancy Humboldt, and we were very close. And she kind of thought like maybe something's going on, and I was ready to go. So one day I opened my door, and here's 6'3" Navajo Tracy Peterson standing there with all of the we called it ASA, American Student Association. They had come to my dorm and were like, "Come on, we have a meeting. Come with us. We have a car. We'll give you a ride." I was like, "No, I don't really want to do." They picked me up and made me go to the ASA meeting. And I wasn't connecting with students that were like me, right? I was walking to class. I felt super alone, super isolated. I was in some classes that I felt like what they were saying about Native people was way off base. And so that was further isolating me. And so that day, and I joke about it now, but really them making me go to the cultural center and connect with the student organization is what kept me at Iowa. And that became my friend base, that became my support system. And then we had faculty and staff that came too. So every Thursday night we had a potluck. And so every Thursday night, everybody was at the center. And that really helped me. So Nancy tipping off other people, then I'm a junior, and Nancy tells me there's a student, and she needs some mentoring. And so this is informal, right? She says, I'd like you to go connect with her. So I ended up finding her. She was a nominee, and she was in the dorms, and she was expecting a baby. She had come to school pregnant, and nobody knew. And so we had to find her a way to get her into, a housing, find her an apartment. So this is something that we as a collective group did to support her. And she ended up now, she has her PhD. And it makes me get really emotional because what she went through and where she came from, she had very little support. She had 2 kids while she was in undergrad, got her master's, and now she's a teacher in the College of Nursing at the University of Iowa. And she's done amazing. So I don't want to give people's names out there, but when you see people do and accomplish things like that, and it didn't happen quick. I mean, it was a 15-year process for her. And her and Tracy are married now. But, and they do amazing work at the University of Iowa. But just seeing that connection that we can make with other humans. And then Nancy ended up being my director, who was my former advisor when I worked for our Center for Development and Enrichment. So now she went from being my mentor, or my advisor, to becoming a mentor, to becoming my director. And she taught me so much about what works for our students and about the passion that we have for making our students succeed. Even though our journeys may be non-traditional, they may be different than majority students that, may come from, 3 generations of higher education. But she taught me techniques that can work. And now I brought that with me when I went to other institutions. So I brought that knowledge and that understanding with me. So yeah, I guess that would be my take on it. Sorry, I start crying.
So three tips or something as you focus in your transition. Number 1, I would say your study skills and time management skills. I think that trips up a lot of people. And it's figuring out how do you study for a different type of class, right? So if you're at the university, obviously you've proven that you can be there and you've got what it takes, but now you have to adjust to maybe taking a class with 100 people in the class, right? So figuring out how do you study and then how do you manage your time. The other thing is finding your people, finding your group, right? So whether that's the volleyball team, whether that's a Native American group on campus or a fraternity, whatever it is, you have to make a connection to meet other people. And so study skills with your time management, how you manage your time, what you're studying, finding a fit, finding a community of people who get you. And then the last thing is, and I read a lot of like personal growth, personal motivation books, so this is kind of but you can only control what you think, and then you can control what you do. There's a lot of things that happen in our lives that you have no control over, right? I had no control over, when I came to college, I grew up in a single parent home. I had no control over how much finances were coming in the house now that I left, right? Because I was able to help during high school, but I couldn't control that, right? So I'm like, what can I do? What can I control now? I can control going to class. I can control managing my finances, asking for help, and I can think that you know what, I'm doing all this because one day I'm going to be able to provide. I'm going to be able to help out. And so like once you get that figured out, because there's going to be things that pull you away from classes, that pull you away from what you got to do. Once you figure that out, like, okay, you know, like there were times my mom would call me and she'd be like, yeah, you know, I can't make money for rent. And I had like 2 cents in my bank account. And so like I felt really guilty at times. But I'm like, I can't control that. Like I don't, unless I'm making money some other way, right? Like there's no way I can control that. So I'm like, you know what? For today, I need to go to class. I need to do well in this exam, because in the future, I don't want my mom to be living that life type of thing. And so yeah, focus on your study skills, time management, find your fit, find your group of people, and then a lot is that identity of like, there's only so much you can control. Focus on what you control and what you think. And my other thing too, sorry, I feel like I'm rambling now. You have these conversations with yourself, right? So you're probably having them right now. Like you're like, oh, I need to do this, oh, la la la. You know, you're always talking to yourself. When you're talking to yourself is more negative than positive, you probably need to work on it, right? So if for example, you're like, man, you're stupid, you didn't do well in that class, and blah blah blah. That's not gonna help you. So you need to be like, all right, Moy, that didn't go the way you thought it was gonna go. What can you do, right? Who do I need to go to? Who do I need to talk to? Because I got what it takes, right? It's not like I'm dumb or anything. I just didn't probably put enough effort into it or time into it. And so there's a lot of things that go into being a successful college student, just successful in general, and having people who can remind you of those things, because you probably already know that. If a friend comes to you asking for advice, you give really good advice, but you don't give yourself that advice sometimes. And so being that, you know, having those people to remind you of like, okay, so yeah, I think you need to think it a little bit.
And also remembering there's some things we can't control, exactly like what you were saying. So, you guys know I'm in my master's program. I was really proud of myself. I've never had like straight A's ever. And I had like a 98% on my classes, so I was all excited. I missed a response to a question because I'm still adjusting to this whole like portals and all the stuff that you guys have now that we didn't used to have. And I missed a response, and it was only like 1 point, but that 1 point took me down to 89%. And I was so upset, I was like crying. But I couldn't control it, right? Like it happened, I talked to the instructor, like it's not that I'm just blowing this off, I missed it. And so I think acknowledging too that stuff happens, you know, and in our communities we have losses. I remember coming home and seeing my little brother's shoes, and the bottoms of their soles of their shoes were completely worn out. And I used my financial aid money to buy them shoes and socks and underwear and t-shirts. I remember doing that really vividly. I remember coming home and combing the knits out of my sister's hair. But I couldn't take them with me. You know, all I could do was come home and say, you can have something different. Your life can be different. And I had to show them that. I couldn't just say it. I couldn't just tell them that. I had to show them. And their journeys are their own. But I showed them that it could be something different if they chose to do that. And it's the same with my kids. Like, I was saying earlier, I thought my son was going to go to engineering school, like he was going to be this biomedical engineer. This is what we had talked about since he was 5. And he decided he wanted to go play football at a community college and not go straight into engineering. And so that's his choice. I can't do anything about that, but I can support him in whatever his dreams are and his journey. And we all aren't supposed to have the same journey either, right? Whatever journey you're on right now, whatever you've gone through to get you where you're at is exactly how it was supposed to be. But don't give up, right? And you're all so young. I feel like I'm young enough.
You feel like, yes.
But you still have every opportunity to do whatever you want. So my supervisor is a VP of, she's a VP at the institution, and we were talking about going on to school, and I plan on getting my PhD also, right? So I'm working, like having a life, raising kids, and I'm like, I want a PhD. It's something I've always wanted. I love teaching, and I love students. And so she told me, she's like, I didn't get my PhD until I was 50. She's like, I didn't go back for it until I was 50. And I was like, really? I would have never known that. And so that inspired me too. I was like, hey, I can do this even if I'm older, right? We don't have to have this system of, if you don't do it perfectly according to these rules or this way of being, that it can't work. And even for those that are in trades and going into trades, that is valuable. We need people in trades. We need carpenters. We need welders. We need all of those skills too. So everyone, whatever journey is their path, is exactly the way it's supposed to be.
So there's multiple ways. So if you call the Office of Admissions at UNL, they can set you up with a tour and all that stuff. If you want a VIP individualized tour, just let me know. I got you. Seriously, I used to work in the admissions office too, and so I think it's important to still do that tour. But I think many times those tours don't cover my office as much, or I don't know how it is that. And so I want you to know more about, like, okay, if you were to come to UNL, I want you to know where my office is.
Yeah.
That way, the first week here at UNL, we connect, I set you up. We have seminars that it's basically 0 credit, which means it's free. And the main purpose of the seminar is to help you transition to the university. So I will enroll you in that. I will give you a peer mentor. I will give you a staff member, like myself. And then you'll know of our programs, connected with different student orgs, and I can talk to you more about that during your campus visit. So I'm the only Padilla. I think there's another Padilla on campus, actually. Take that back. But if in your program thingy is my info, just contact me and I'll make sure you're set.
One of my students at Iowa is a Padilla.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So everything that Moises just said is exactly true. If you're going to do a campus visit, find a multicultural office or find the Native Student Services office on that campus. And also at NICC, I have a really big feeling that if you guys talk to some people at NICC, they would bring you down on a group visit. So if you wanted to specifically do it with the intention of an admission visit, NICC could work with Moy and you could develop that. So it's catered to you and your needs. It's not like this general visit where you go and those are good too. But you've already been here, you already have an idea, and this would be a much more,
more personalized. And also, I don't know what you want to study, but even connecting you with people in that college or in that major is important too. Because connecting with the culture center is important, but also connecting with your academic college is important because they control your degree. You can't major in diversity and multicultural affairs. You might do some multicultural education. I don't give degrees. What I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And also knowing that faculty members are not scary. Yeah, they're smart. Yes, they went on to get their PhD and they've been successful and they've done amazing things, and that's awesome. But that doesn't make them like oh, in this place where they're better than everybody else. They're regular people and they care about you. And you see that here. You have faculty members here that genuinely care, and that's why they're doing this work. Honestly, to be really honest, like a lot of us at institutions are constantly fighting to serve our students. We're constantly fighting for funding. We're constantly fighting for the services that we need to take care of our students the way that we know they need to be cared for. And so we go through our own battles. And we do that because we believe in you. And a lot of these people in the room, I know they go through their own battles to even put on a program like this. And so just feeling that you are valued, that faculty are not scary, they're there to support you. This is their career that they've chosen to teach. And just embracing that and making those relationships. No one's better than anyone. It doesn't matter how many degrees they have. They're not better than anyone. And summer programs are really important too. I used to run it was a native summer program at the University of Iowa for high school students. And so we brought them in and they stayed, and it was free. So they stayed in the dorms, they ate at the residence halls, they got tours like you did of sports facilities. We took them to the nursing simulation lab. They got to see all this cool science technology stuff that goes on for the institution. And we talked about, kind of similar to what we talked about today, how can science play a role in your community, right? Like how can you help people by knowing this information? And I think that's really important to take advantage of summer programs and also encourage youth in your communities too. If you have a little brother, sister, niece, nephew, encourage them to, because it's hard, like to go across the state for a week. My daughter went to USD for a summer camp this year. It was a 3-day camp. I was across the campus and she was like, Mom, and I'm like, no, you need to experience this. You need to go through this. And she did, and we FaceTimed every night, but she still stayed. And she made friends, and one of the little girls she's still friends with, and this was a year ago, so they still hang out. So those friendships and relationships develop too in different places.
And sometimes it's hard to say like, yeah, this is for me too, right? Like many times you feel like, well, like I don't want to seem like I'm, like I need everything, or or you're very humble maybe, and you're like, oh, I'll be okay. But no, take advantage. For example, tutoring, it's free. You pay, or some services you pay for, and if you're not using them, it's like you're just giving away that money. Which is very generous of you, but take advantage of everything that's on that campus, including people's time, because it's my job to be there. I get paid to work with y'all. Like it's not like I'm doing you a favor type of thing.
I just have to go off the tutoring thing, and so I found it as an instructor. Students are reluctant to ask questions because they think that if they ask a question, that makes them appear dumb, or but that's false, because if you have a question, somebody else, probably 2 or 3 other people in the class have the same question. It's not, and you have more courage to ask it. So you're like being a leader and asking questions and stuff like that. So yeah, it's important, and tutoring services are the same way. Maybe you just like are embarrassed to go to a tutor because you think that reflects poorly on you, but it just means that you're taking the initiative to take control. So I just wanted to add that.
And something that you said too in terms of humility, I never viewed humility in this way. I have someone that I consider I'm very close to. She's kind of like a mom to me in Sioux City. And when I moved back, I had 3 young children at home. My oldest daughter was in college. And I was really struggling to get to practices, to do everything. But I only had my oldest daughter. I've always taken care of everybody. And it's just kind of like, my dad would say, suck it up and do it, get it done, right? And so I did. And one day she asked me, why don't you ask for help? And I was like, well, I'll be okay. I can figure it out. I can do it. She said, you need to humble yourself. That's exactly what she said. And I'm like, well, I am humble. Like, the way I think about it, like, I am being humble. I'm like, well, that's not a very humble thing to say. You're being humble. But what she said is, you can't acknowledge that you need help. And she said, that's not healthy and that's not humility. And I was like, and I had to think about that. So for days that was going through my head, like I'd be driving and I'm like, why do I have a problem asking for help? And then I kind of went back, and that's been something that I think has hindered me for a long time, is that I was scared that if I said I needed help, I was vulnerable and I didn't know something. And I didn't want to open myself up to being vulnerable. And there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. And I've had to learn that through my journey, that we're all vulnerable at different times. But if you can acknowledge that and ask for help, like saying, hey, can you help me pick her up from daycare, or could you help? That's not a bad thing, right? But that was just something that I'd never thought of, humility and vulnerability, like being interconnected like that. So asking for help isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. It shows your strength. It shows your acknowledgement of self and your ability to see that and to be responsible.
Yeah, so I think students don't think about that when you're like, all right, I'm gonna go to college. I was gonna own my own hardware store when I came to UNL. That was my goal. I worked at a hardware store, so I wanted to be my own boss, be my own business person. But I think many times you don't know what's out there, and you don't know of all the options. So I didn't know I could work at a university. Like coming into college, I had no clue that, because I would see professor. I knew what a college professor was, but I never saw myself like a college professor type person. And so, but I didn't know you could be a staff at a university. And so that once I figured that out, and I'm like, oh, you can work with students and advise them and coach them, and that completely changed my trajectory. And I've seen it happen. Many students want to help others, and so they go into the health professions. Everybody, maybe they're thinking about becoming doctors or nurses, and then they take organic chemistry and they're like, I hate this stuff. Like, I don't want to do this. This is terrible. There's other ways you can help people if that's what you want to do. And we have, for example, child, youth, and family studies. You can work with after-school programs where you're helping people. You can become a social worker. There's so many paths, and so it's figuring out kind of like, what do you value, and then how do you get to kind of what you enjoy doing. And so I think at UNL the average is about 5 times that a student changes their major. It's a lot, and there's just a lot of options. And then once you get into a field, then where do you want to specify, or what do you want to specialize in that field? So once I'm like, okay, I want to work at a university as a staff member. Where do you want to work? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, I can work in financial aid, I can work in admissions, I can work in multicultural affairs. There's so many, so then you have to make another decision. So you just have to figure out, just make those decisions as you go, and sometimes you're not gonna know for sure if it's gonna work out. But if you, I think if you look at it like, I just wanna know, what do I wanna do next, instead of what do I wanna do for the rest of my life? Because sometimes that's intimidating. Trying to figure out what the heck you're gonna do for the rest of your life, like, I don't know what I wanna do when I grow up, and I'm 32 years old. So it's just, what do you want to do next? Right now, I want to work with students, and I want to be an advisor to them. 10 years from now, who knows what I'll be doing.
Yeah, I think when we're little, right, when we're young, people are like, what do you want to be when you're grown up? You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a teacher. And then you think that you have to pick this thing, and you have to be that, right? And so my best friend would tell the story. In high school, we'd be at parties, and everyone else is like talking about what type of jeans they have on or whatever, and I'm talking about like current events and politics. Like, it's just always been in my nature, and they would call me a square and say what a nerd I am, and I'm still a nerd, but I own that now. So I was always interested in politics. When I went to the university, I was going to be a poli-sci major, I was going to get my law degree. I was going to go work in DC like my dad told me to and save the world and save Indian country. That's what I was going to do. That was my thought. And I got to school and I took poli-sci classes, and I was with these kids that are, you know, whose parents owned, like, probably major donors to institutions, and they were doing poli-sci and they were in the Capitol doing this and that. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So I chose a major that was called American Studies, and American Studies encompasses a lot of different things. I knew I wanted to study and know more about our federal Indian policies, the laws, how they affected our communities, how they affected our people. And so I minored in American Indian Native Studies and focused on resistance movements. So when I had to write kind of like a thesis to graduate, and my thesis was on maroon colonies. So how our ancestors in different parts of the Americas formed alliances with different groups and fought off colonization, militarily fought off colonization. So I focused on the Seminoles. But I was like, oh my gosh, like nobody ever taught me this stuff in high school. I never learned in history class that the Seminoles aligned themselves in the swamps and literally dropped out of trees, and that's where the whole thought of guerrilla warfare came from, was the Seminoles. Like, I had no idea they fought off the Spanish, the English, the French, and the Americans. Like, nobody told me that. So that's kind of where I was going towards a history major, history background. And then I ended up doing admissions. I ended up doing work in multicultural affairs as well, because I just love education, right? I love students being able to have the ability to get an education. But then now, fast forward, what I'm studying is traditional governance. It's political systems within Indian country. And so it incorporates federal policy, it incorporates law, it incorporates treaty rights, it incorporates all these things that I was so interested in, and takes it into traditional governance and nation building. And then there's other people that think like that too. That's what I found out. Like, the University of Arizona has a whole program dedicated to this work. Harvard Institute has a whole program dedicated to it. So I got to meet these other people, like the Manly McGays of the world, that are doing this awesome work and have been for a long time. And I realized I'm not totally crazy. So that was my path. I had no idea that this is where I was going to be. 5 years ago even, I wouldn't have thought that I'm where I am right now. I would never, 10 years ago, have thought I ever would have moved home again. So I just think that, like you said, in the moment, this is what I want to do right now, in this moment, and this is how I want to help my community, this is how I want to help my family in this moment, and then what the future brings, we'll see. And it depends on the networking that you do, the people you meet, and so and the people that inspire you, right? Like, look for those people, those positive people that inspire you, and own that, I guess.